saying yes to everything is dangerous, but saying yes to the right client is part of the game. And being very selective with who you work with and putting your time with, I think is really important.
Welcome to the Onsite podcast. We chat with contractors, educators, industry professionals about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's fucking get into it.
All right, welcome back to the Onsite podcast. We are on episode 3, an 8-part series on contractor control, on why contractors lose control and things that they can do to implement to help them regain control. On today's episode, we are going to talk about why chasing every lead makes things worse. I have a different approach on this. Everybody always talks about, chasing every lead and how that can be problematic for your business. I don't believe that you should chase every lead. I believe that you should chase the right clients. I believe that the right clients are critical to the success of your business, and finding the right people to surround your business and yourself will ultimately dictate your success. So chasing every lead is kind of a blanket statement where everybody says you shouldn't go after every lead, right? And I agree to a certain extent, but I do believe that some doors are worth opening just enough to determine whether or not that is your ideal client or not. Okay, so a lot of contractors feel like they get into this stage where they feel like they have to say yes to every opportunity because they look at their schedule or they look at their bank account and they realize that they have nothing coming in, or they don't have enough work, or they've got bills to pay. And so they take on every opportunity, whether it fits with them or not. And I mean, there's a point to this that exists that's true and accurate. I think the biggest thing is that sometimes those jobs that you take on, they are temporary jobs, right? They aren't jobs that you want to continue to do. They're jobs that you need to do in order for your operation to continue. Now, when you take these opportunities, I think the biggest thing is that you identify and you organize them in a way that you can better market them and expose the true opportunity. Because what's really happening here is that, let's say that you start your business, right? And now you're thirsty for opportunity, right? And so you take this opportunity, you take that opportunity, you do, a bathroom, you do a kitchen, you do a main floor, you do an addition, whatever they might be. I don't know. It totally depends on your network, your community, the people that you have around you that will dictate the types of initial opportunities that come in. And those initial opportunities that come in are generally connected to friends, family, or close supportive people. So let's just say hypothetically that you want to be, a large scale remodeling company, because everybody in some way, shape, or form always wants these big projects, but they don't get the big projects to start with. They ultimately get a bunch of small projects, and then they start posting and talking about the small projects. That's not going to get you the bigger projects. That's the true reality here, is that it's not even about chasing opportunities. It's about promoting the wrong opportunities. Like, you have to find a way to expose the greater picture of what you're doing with these smaller opportunities. Because if you continue to post bathrooms or small little service jobs, you're going to get the same thing. You're going to continue to attract the same type of clients, the same type of projects, and you ultimately get the same type of outcome. And so instead of thinking about it that you have to be super selective with the leads that come through, look at the leads and say, what opportunities exist in this lead, right? Can I expose something that will allow me to attract more of these bigger, better opportunities that I'm hunting for? And that's really what it comes down to. And then the other part to it is like, are these the right type of people that I want to work with? If you start promoting and staying in a space where you have the wrong type of culture, the wrong type of clients, the wrong type of people in your ecosystem, then you will continue to attract the same type of people. The world has a crazy way of putting people in front of you. And I really believe that if you stack up 10 of the wrong clients, you'll continue to get more of the same. If you stack up 2 not great clients, 3 okay clients, 2 really good clients, and you expose the 2 really good clients, I think that in the next batch, you will attract more of the really good clients. So I think it's really important that we understand that when we start, we have to sometimes take a lot of things that we don't want to do. But I think what's really important is just exposing the true opportunities and the true, the services that you're providing for the people that you want to attract more of. So when a contractor ultimately says yes to everything, 2 things happen. They close the door on bigger, better opportunities, and they maybe, like I mentioned earlier, they maybe attract more of the same type of clients. So let's say that you say yes to a project that you don't want to do, that the client doesn't fit your avatar. There's no future opportunities. There's no potential there. You say yes to that person. That closes the door for your availability to do other projects, to do other tasks for other people that fit your client avatar, that fit the type of project that you're trying to do. And so this is a hard place to play in because most people need this level of validation that, they're making the right moves, but then their bank account is probably saying, something different. And so then they just say yes. And then they say yes again. And then they say, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I have stacked up, 4 clients that weren't my ideal client. And it literally happened like this. I took one that I shouldn't have taken. And then right after that, I got another one of the same. And then right after that, I got another one the same. And I recognized even in that moment, I was like, man, you continue to attract the same type of people if you continue to work with the same type of people, And so be very cautious with the type of people that you allow in. Saying yes to the right person is also very important. I also, on the other side, identified that, I had a client who was perfectly on avatar, needed a small little project, a small little office converted into a bedroom. And I knew that client, if I could deliver a great service for them, there would be bigger, better opportunities. Well, that same client, delivered millions of dollars worth of work over the course of the next 5 years. And I took on the one small little project that most contractors would have walked away and said no to. They would have said no to that. Another situation, there was a small kind of dirty, shitty job, right? But the customer was my ideal client. Had lots of, businesses, lots of commercial facilities all across, the province. And doing that job for that client, I knew would close the door for the other contractor and open the door for us. And so sometimes you have to capitalize on opportunities that exist. And this is a note for the contractors that lost those opportunities that said no. Somebody was already working with these clients, right? Every good client already has a contractor associated under their belt. What happens is the reason they start looking for somebody else is generally that contractor gets really busy because he's probably really good, gets really busy, and then starts saying no. He starts saying yes and no to the job, not to the person, to the job. If my premium client asked me to hang a picture in their living room, I would hang the picture in their living room. Doesn't matter the size of the project. The power of the relationship is the most important element, because those other contractors that said no to those 2 customers, there's hundreds of other clients like this, but those 2 contractors that said no to those opportunities that the clients were asking ultimately lost on millions of dollars worth of work following those 2 opportunities. And so saying yes to everything is dangerous, but saying yes to the right client is part of the game. And being very selective with who you work with and putting your time with, I think, is really important. So let's just say you're not busy, right? Let's say you are busy. You're either busy or you're not busy. So we're going to go down the path of you're not busy. Unfortunately, you're in a vulnerable position if you're not busy. If you have no cash coming in, if you're dependent on, the next opportunity that comes to the table, you have to really look at your process. Are we profitable? Okay. Taking a job and making sure that you have the right systems in place and the right sales framework is critical. What is the point of estimating a project to not get it? Like, what's the point? If you estimate a project and you don't get it and you're not busy, you have to look at your process. Something is broken. Something inside of that sales framework is broken. And because if a client is calling you for a service and they say they have a budget, they say they have something, they say they want to do something, there's probably a good chance they do, right? And if you have no work, your job is to find a way to work with them, especially if they're ideal client. Find a way, okay? If their budget is whatever it might be, I'm just going to use 200K. If their budget's 200K and they want all of these different elements, they want all of these things that they can't obtain inside of that budget. Maybe they haven't had a real conversation. Maybe they don't understand what they can and can't do. Building trust and authority with that client, utilizing their budget, maximizing the opportunity within their budget is really what you have to get really good at. Because if you don't do it, the other guy's going to do it. Like, they're going to hire someone. Almost every time you go to a client and you talk to them about a job, you talk to them about an opportunity, and you put together your proposal, and you come back and they're like, oh, that's higher than what we thought. You give up because you didn't manage the sale properly. The client hires another contractor. They get it done. And you fucking lost out on them on the opportunity. And this happens so frequently. It's just crazy. And they blame the losing the project on so many other things. If that's my ideal client, if that was the customer that I want to work with, I'm going to help them understand exactly what every dollar is going to go towards, so that they can trust me, so that they can believe in me, so that they can believe that we are capable of bringing this to life within their budget. Sometimes you have to get creative with your process, make changes so that you can attract and execute for that customer. So if you have no work, look at your process, okay? Or come to one of our calls and say, I'm not getting any work. Maybe we can tell you real quick and identify what's actually going on.
Hey, we've got an ad here. Make sure to pay attention. What's up, guys? Are you a contractor or business owner looking to take things to the next level? Well, I've got something for you. The Elite Builder Society is a community that helps contractors grow and scale. For $49 a month, you can have access to 20 group coaching calls. Look, you're probably wondering, how am I going to show up to 20 calls, Brandon? That's a lot. And yeah, it is a lot for $49 a month. But every call is recorded so you can watch it at your leisure. But you get the best experience when you're live on the call with us. Okay, at the end of every webinar, there will be a Q&A where you can ask the industry expert questions that you can implement into your business. Look, if you're ready to take things to the next level for $49 a month, go to ebsworks.com and register today. I look forward to seeing you inside the community.
Now, if you're the busy contractor, you got lots of work going on, I think it's really important that you do a client inventory. Client inventory to me means that I'm going to look at all of my ideal clients. I'm going to literally print a picture of them, and I'm going to put them in a book, or I'm going to put them on my wall, and I'm going to say, this is the type of customer that I want. These are the types of projects that I want. Okay. It's crazy what you're capable of doing just by pinning that on the wall. Your subconscious will be running around looking for these opportunities. You will be identifying, is this that type of customer? Right. And then you can start to pick them out. Start saying no to clients that it's not even about the project, because I think a lot of contractors screw this up when they say no to projects that don't fit into their service category. I think it's really important that we service great customers. Give them every solution to every problem so that they don't even have to look for another contractor. They need an electrician and you're not an electrician, find a great electrician. They need a plumber, you're not a plumber, find a plumber. You want to build that arsenal, that Avengers of solutions for great customers. And as you're building from the small guy to the big guy, that's literally what it looks like. It's like no opportunities, take a couple of the great opportunities, expose them, attract more of the same. Then you become busy, you become bigger, be very selective. Okay. This is something that I even should have told myself, many years ago. Be very selective with the people you say yes to. I remember specifically one of the clients that I ended up working with, the project started, it was like $700K. And somehow it came all the way down after multiple different drawings, after multiple different changes, down to like $300K. And even at that point, I was like, oh, okay, we got a path forward. But I didn't recognize all of the other things that got us to that point where I should have just walked away because they were so indecisive and they had no real budget. They had lots of money, but they were very tight with their money. And so they didn't want to pay for the things that they needed to pay for. So, and you have to recognize those types of things that are happening. Anybody that typically wants a deal is not an ideal client. If they are publicly saying to your face, you know what, can you do it for a little bit less? You probably have to really decide. And it's hard to do when it's, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table and you need that job. It's really hard to do. They know that they have leverage over you, but that leverage can turn into major problems. So be very selective with the type of people that you work with. This is something that, I think we all really need to be very aware of, even the clients that I coach. If I don't feel like I can help you, if I don't feel like you are going to show up, then I probably don't want to work with you. Like, we get the best results from the people that actually take action, not people that, think that we're going to wave a magic wand and fix whatever's going on. And it's no different in the construction industry. It's no different. There's no magic wand. Okay. It still takes hard work. Still takes action. You still have to fucking show up, and so, picking the right type of client that you can provide a great service for, so it fulfills you as a business owner, is critical. So the patterns that I see with contractors that struggle the most are honestly confidence and indecision. So they lack the confidence to make the decision necessary to move the business forward. When they have a problem that they're facing on site that they're comfortable with, they're probably the doer of the task. So they probably started as the doer of the task. They became a number two for one of their, the business owners. And then what ultimately happened at that point was they thought they were better. They thought that the grass was greener on the other side, so they would go on their own, right? They don't understand business. They don't understand how to get leads. They don't understand how to build systems. And so what I find, the contractors that I work with, that struggle the most is that are not even the ones that I work with, the ones that I just see visibly struggling, is that they just struggle with making decisions. They can make a decision on site, they can make a decision doing the job, but they struggle with making a decision to actually grow their business. They miss so many great opportunities early on, and ego becomes just a huge problem. Unfortunately, I have had the opportunity to talk with hundreds of people that I guarantee I could have helped. And I take it literally, like I take it like, it bothers me when I know that I let them go. They let themselves go because they obviously decide not to, move forward with us, but we let them go to fail. And then a year will go by and, we'll reconnect with them and see how things are going. And they're in the exact same position. Meanwhile, the other people that we work with are superseding them. And I think the biggest struggle that contractors face is that they don't understand how to actually grow their business. They're indecisive with their decisions moving forward, and they just resort back to what they know. You tell them you have to get off the tools. Well, what does that mean? It's a lot of things that means when you have to get off the tools. There's a lot behind getting off the tools. There's a lot of systems that are involved with getting off the tools. And I think what happens is when they don't understand or they lack the confidence to get off the tools, they just go back on the tools. I even have a couple of people that I'm working with just have a slower growth pace. They're more concerned about hiring people. They're more concerned about investing in marketing. They're more concerned because they don't understand what the outcome looks like when they do that action. And so there's this fear thing that exists. And I think the biggest struggle, honestly, that contractors face is themselves. If they look around and they see these big successful companies, they probably have a mentor or coach in their business. There's a high probability that at some point somebody guided them to that point and they were, crystal clear in their direction. They took action and their business still could use work. We can all be better, but I think the most important thing is that you have to make definitive direction and decisions and move forward. Just move forward. Okay, so now on this point that I want to talk about is contractor control with losing leads, okay? So why contractors lose control with their leads and their opportunities. Now, most contractors lose control with their leads and opportunities because they don't understand how to get them. They don't understand what is connected to actually getting a job. They understand that somebody calls them. They don't understand what's behind the action of them actually calling. And what ultimately this is going to be, I'm going to try to explain it in a way that it really allows you to understand, what is the decision making behind that. Let's say that you're a parent, right? And you have, a son or a daughter, and they want to do something that is a little bit out there. Okay. They want to do something that's a little bit out there. They're going to consult with you potentially. They're going to consult with somebody close to them. And they're going to say, hey, I want to go do X, Y, and Z, whatever it might be. And X, Y, and Z is going to be about, this much money. And so in that moment, there's a risk because they're giving up something, right? They're giving up something to get something. And there's this unknown thing. But as a parent or as a supporter of a person, we generally want to, go through our systems. Can we trust this person? Are we confident that they can do whatever it is that we're looking to do? Do we feel like the outcome is going to be, said that we're trying to get? And a customer is the exact same way. A lead is the exact same way. Before they even call you, they are going through those processes. Can I trust this person? Am I confident they can do the work? Do I believe they can provide this outcome that we're trying to achieve? Now, if your content doesn't reflect that, then you can't get a lead. Okay. And everyone posts on social media like it's a secondary or a third task. They go to site, they do the job, they focus on managing whatever it is that they think they're managing. And then they pull out their phone and they create some content. And maybe, unlikely, but maybe, as society continues to grow, this is going to be something that's going to be the norm. Before you do any of those things, you pull out your phone and you record the content about how you're solving this problem so that prospective future client, that wants to maybe hire you, that wants to, be one of your leads, sees that you're capable of doing this task. It's very similar to the task that they're going to hire you for. You have to be able to paint the picture of the future for them. They might watch hours of your content. I know that if my daughter or my son wanted to do something, I would not just say, yeah, let's go do it. I would definitely say, let's sit down, let's figure this out, and let's try to make the most educated decision possible so that we can move forward. And so if you're a contractor and you have no leads, look at the way you're positioning yourself in the industry. Can people actually trust you? Do they believe that you're capable of helping them with whatever it is that you're capable of? If you're not doing these things, don't expect to get a lead. Don't expect to get an opportunity. Even if you pay for ads don't put opportunities in front of people that can't actually do them, and so I think contractors lose control of generating leads because they first don't know how to get them. We've ran a webinar inside of our community specifically on how to organize a client as it comes into your ecosystem, right? It's a flywheel. It's an opportunity that exists. And then you want that to repeat. Every great client will attract 5 more great customers. It's your job to manage that. And if you don't understand how to do it, find yourself somebody like us, if it's not us, fine, but find someone that will support you enough to give you the confidence that you have a crystal clear understanding on how to generate these opportunities. Okay. So let's say hypothetically, you're not crazy busy, but you're not dead, and you've got a couple jobs on the table and you're faced with this opportunity. Okay. It's a very hard decision. It's a very hard opportunity. You meet a client and immediately something's off. Immediately it's the wrong vibe and you feel like this is one of those jobs I should say no. Right. And you probably don't. I've done it before. I should have said no, a few times for sure. And I didn't, and I pushed it forward and I got the job. Congratulations. You just walked into basically the gates of fucking hell, and sometimes when you pick these clients that are just the absolute wrong person, it drags you down, and it's hard to say no. It's hard to stop progressing that sale because you feel like that's part of the process. It's like, you get a phone call, you build out a quote, you send the quote. They either say yes or no, you move forward. What if they say yes and they shouldn't have said yes? What if they say yes and they're not the right person, right? Now what do? You've now put yourself in this vulnerable position where now you have to potentially work with somebody that's going to be cancerous for your business, okay? It's dangerous to work with shitty fucking people. It's very dangerous. And they don't uncover themselves right away. And there are some key factors that I want to identify for you so that you can be consciously aware of who to say no to, okay? If the client says, I want it done right away, red flag. Why? If you go to a partially started project and the client says, can you finish this? The other contractor did something. Red flag. Where's the other contractor? Why is he not there? If the client says, can you do it for this number? Red flag. Why do it? You know what I mean? Like all of these little tiny things. If there is a red flag and it is waving itself in front of you, hey, I don't know, boss. I don't know if we should do this one. You should step back, give yourself 24 hours to actually make a conscious decision. Should I take this risk on for me and my family? Because that's what it is. It's a risk. The world is fucked up. There are some shitty people out there and their goal is literally to fuck you over. That's their goal. And so why take on that risk? One of the contractors that I coach took on his biggest opportunity to date. Risk. There was red flags. Okay. But it was risk versus reward. And so how did we manage the risk versus reward? Paperwork. We had great contracts that are built off of lessons learned, right? And so we build these great contracts. Sure as shit, that client tried to screw him for about $40,000 and not pay. That amount of money would have crippled his business. And so how did we protect ourselves? By protecting ourselves with the right type of contract, the right wording, the right strategy on managing that outstanding debt. We got paid in full, and we didn't even have to go to court. We talked about going to court, didn't have to go to court. Look, these are risks that we all take, on both sides. And we really have to be consciously aware of, what is the best decision? What's the best path forward? And who's the right person? I always talk about, that this is my little claim to fame. If there was one job on the table, great client, only if it was a great client. Okay. There's one job on the table and there's, a bunch of other contractors in the room. I feel like I possess enough of the skills and abilities necessary to deliver for that customer. I'm going to walk out with that job. I'm going to give the client the confidence that they're hiring the right type of person. Now, that can also be effective and true with the wrong type of customer, right? And maybe maybe they're a great person. Maybe they're just not your person. Maybe you guys just don't mix. And so why try to make something out of nothing? Don't take the risk. I promise you. I know this firsthand. Do not take the risks because the risks are going to affect you, your family, and their family potentially as well.
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Onsite Podcast. So here's the deal. We want to grow this show and we need your help. It's simple. Pay the tax, share the show. That's it. Let's get back into it.
Okay, so you notice how some of those contractors, just the world's on fire all around them, but they seem calm, they seem cool, collected, organized, just chill. There's a few different types of these people out there, I believe. I think there are people that are just delusional and don't understand what's actually going on around them. And so they just ignore it. The guys that have like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of unread text messages, or, tens of thousands, they kind of brag about it, tens of thousands of emails that are unread. If that's you, you need to clean your shit up. Okay. Like, following this call, go fucking clean your shit up. Your notifications should be cleaned up, because you're not in control if your notifications aren't even in control. And if you're calm around that stuff, you need to just understand that it's not normal to be calm around, a bunch of unread messages. Those are people that you're letting down. And so, the other guy who's organized, that has his, notifications cleaned up or manageable, has his clients and his projects organized and manageable. The reason they're calm is because they understand that every problem has a solution. Literally, I don't care what the fucking problem is. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Every problem has a solution. And your job as a contractor is to figure out the route to solve the problem. You're road mapping, okay? You're traveling your day, you're navigating situations all the time. Boom, hard fucking thing happens, And now at that point, this is where you either go down a path of spiraled, loss and failure, or you calm down, you organize your thoughts, and you understand, okay, it's just a problem. We'll figure out the solution. And then you start breaking down the different options with the different solutions. You start weighing the pros and cons with, this decision versus that decision. And you're doing this internally. And so you have to find a way from problem to solution or directional path as quickly as possible. And a lot of times those are conflicting, uncomfortable, just weird conversations, weird situations that most people avoid. So if your contractor is one that focuses on solving problems, right? They focus on really finding a path forward as quickly as possible. And that's some of the feedback that you get from, previous referrals that you're maybe talking about. These are things that your clients are monitoring, and make sure that your client is aware that you are navigating challenging situations and you're creating resolutions to problems. If you're trying to be the calm contractor versus the one that's losing control, just understand that every problem has a solution. Calm down. Okay, breathe for a second and understand the process. Here's the problem. Let's create a solution and a path forward. Okay. So if you're a contractor that feels nervous about turning work down, I'm with you. I've been in a position where, finances weren't there and we took on projects that we shouldn't have taken on. And so I can really relate with that. And if you feel nervous about turning that job down, it probably means you shouldn't turn the job down. If you feel really nervous, don't turn it down, but understand how to manage that client and those expectations. And also, if you're not busy, that's when you make these decisions. That's when you have to take a little bit more risk. If you're trying to grow your business, if you're trying to move forward and you don't have a lot of work in your pipeline, sometimes you have to take a little bit more risks. If you're busy and you're booked out, and if you're saying to clients that you're booked out for the next year, fuck, dude, look at yourself. That is the dumbest thing. Don't say that. Like, don't say that I'm not going to grow my business anymore and I'm going to turn away great customers. Okay. There was this one gentleman that told me, never turn down work. And I took that literally. I was like, okay, never turn down work. And then I took on every job. And then I realized, okay, so what if I said, never turn down great customers? Never turn down great customers. Never make yourself unavailable to great customers. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to never turning down great customers. All right, so that is a wrap for episode 3. And dude, I'm really liking these conversations. Even though I'm talking to myself, I've gotten some feedback from a bunch of different contractors that we coach, and then ones that are considering using our services. And so I appreciate your feedback. Definitely, make sure to share this with anyone that you think would benefit from these episodes. We've got 8, so we've still got 5 more. And our next episode is going to be specifically about how to control the next opportunity. Okay, so there is a sales framework. There's a strategy that you want to incorporate into your process on how to manage the client, right? The sales framework manages the client all the way through, and you have to reframe, reposition, and recontrol every situation. And so we're going to talk about that in the next episode. And I believe, truthfully, this is my superpower. I think that I can really dig into a client and manage that entire journey to close more opportunities. This is sometimes why some people close the wrong opportunities, because they get so fucking good at it that they bring on the wrong people. And so when you get that good at it and you bring in the wrong people because your process and your framework closes jobs, you have to be consciously aware of the people you don't want to work with. And so I'm excited about that episode, and I cannot wait. Thank you so much for the support on this 8-episode series as well. Part 3, we are done, and looking forward to jumping into number 4. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, that concludes this episode of the Onsite Podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please pay the tax, share the show. Guys, if you want to be a part of the Elite Builder Society, all you got to do is pay $49 a month. That's it. $49 a month. You get 20 group coaching calls every month. Okay? Go to ebsworks.com and register today. If you enjoyed the show, please pay the tax and share the show.